5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
You're listening to the GHT Overland podcast. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on the GHT Overland podcast. This is where you get the greatest interviews and insights from overland travelers around the globe.
You will learn the basics to the advanced in overlanding, so buckle up and get ready for more adventure. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lisa. This is part 2 with Peter and Carol of Epic Family Road Trip. You know, the famous YouTube show.
Famous to us anyway. Last week, we learned the value of a good hike, color coding everything, and of course, a lot more.
This week, you'll want to buckle up as we talk about chicken Thai curry.
Ooh, yum.
Finance tips for overlanders, and the value of being open to recommendations from both locals and other overlanders.
Smart. Lots of knowledge in this one. We cover a ton more in this episode with Peter and Carol. So what do you say, Lisa? Let's jump into meal planning, because this is my second favorite topic.
What's your first?
Well, morning drinks and evening drinks. What's yours?
Finances.
Yeah?
I like that you can take $32 and it'll last you a couple weeks and you can have lots of tacos. So I'm veering towards Baja.
Any tips you have for meal planning and keeping meats and vegetables fresh?
We use a lot of squash because that lasts for such a long time. I always carry some either spaghetti squash or acorn squash or even just like sweet potatoes, things like that don't go bad and they don't need refrigeration, and they can kind of be bumped around as well because, you know, things will fall and shift in the vehicle.
Meats, package them individually. So we buy in bulk and then package them individually and then get them frozen down in the freezer as quickly as possible.
I divide it up quite a bit, and I kind of make it more smaller portions when it comes to the meats, unless we're like on a coastline or something where it's like fresh right there.
And no matter where you go in the world, food is available. I mean, we're starting to make some plans for even more remote travel, like in parts of Africa and things like that, where you have to carry food for longer periods of time. So that'll be even more challenging. But most places, food is readily available. So you just have to be aware of where you're going and how long you're going to be away from, and then just plan appropriately. Make sure you get the food that you need for the next week if you're going to be off the grid for a week.
And I do always pack shakes as well, just in case for emergencies, because we have been hiking or in a place and the kids really, really want to stay maybe 2 more days, but I know I don't have enough food. I might only have enough food for, another half of a day or another 3 meals. So I'll go, okay, let's have shakes for breakfast and lunch, and we can make it spread out longer.
It's like a nutritional meal replacement type shake, which is stored as a powder, and you just mix it with water, that type of thing. Most people would be familiar or have a brand that they like. And that's basically a meal replacement. And and it's easy carry food, and it's last minute, and it's emergencies or you decide to stay longer type situations.
Yeah. And with vegetables, we take them out of the plastic and we use the mesh vegetable bags, and those keep them really fresh. And I hang a lot of them, like if we're parked, I'll just hang them all up, like from avocados and tomatoes, things like that. So they're just hanging in the back of the Jeep, but it seems to work a lot better.
What's a favorite meal or recipe you enjoy while traveling?
Ooh.
The Thai curry has been one of them. It's like a curry meal. So it's chicken, some Thai curry, yellow Thai curry. Although over the years, the kids like hotter and hotter and hotter food as they're experiencing other cultures. So I went from yellow to probably the red Thai. But yeah, it's like a chicken curry, and then it's got cauliflower and bok choy and sweet potatoes. And really just whatever you have, because you don't always have the right ingredients. So that's one thing about overland cooking is you're making do with what you have. And almost every couple of nights you invent a new recipe, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, that's a good meal.
And then how do you generally do your laundry on the road?
Well, if we're passing through a town, I'll stop at a laundromat. But then we try and do that like once a week, because everything does get dirty. But say we are out there for like over 2 weeks, I just get hot water and a bucket, and it's good old fashioned elbow grease and hang it up to dry. We did a lot of that in New Zealand, and a lot of the locals like gave me really good tips of like drying everything inside out, and so that you don't get UV rays, damaging your clothes. Yeah, so a lot of scrubbing that, and then we can last a little bit longer until we get into a town where we can wash it thoroughly.
Yeah, or in North America, we'll put into a campground from time to time. There's campgrounds everywhere, like a KOA type situation, and then you can take a hot shower, you can get really good Wi-Fi, get caught up on things, you can use their laundry facilities and stuff like that. So
yeah, one thing I've learned is to really not be picky and be super flexible, because I might have an idea like as a mom, like, okay, so this week we're going here, here, and here, and this is what I can do, right? Because I'm always thinking of laundry, food, and everything else, and things will always change, and yeah, being flexible is like a huge thing I've learned.
Definitely, for all the listeners out there, what Carol just said, being flexible, being able to adapt and change and put off your plans, and that's just part of the life on the road, especially when shipping. If anyone's interested in shipping to a foreign country, I learned this after the fact, but they said, hey, all dates are approximate. So we had planned to have our vehicle arrive in New Zealand at a certain time, and we had our tickets to arrive at the same time. I think I mentioned earlier, the vehicle got there late. Now, that was because a hurricane came down the East Coast and knocked out some of the waypoints that the ship was going to be stopping at. So they told me in one case where they have 9 cranes unloading, there was only 3 operational. So those are things that, you have to consider and always be ready to make an adjustment. So what we did, we rented a vehicle, and then it was delayed again. So we were going to go to make a trip over to Australia. At the end of our New Zealand trip, we moved it to the beginning of our New Zealand trip. So we went over to Australia, and then when we confirmed that the ship had arrived back in Auckland, we flew back to Auckland. So those types of things are going to happen. It's just if you know that ahead of time, you're not going to be stressed about it. You're actually going to enjoy it, because it always turns out for the good.
And it's about how you think. It's all mindset. Like, when I get kind of like bogged or like, oh, I'm trying to cook, for 5 people with a tiny little jet boil, and 1 or 2, pots. I'm like, I get to do this, and I get to be sitting here, and my kids want to be with me. And it's just, I get to be outside, and it's just all about how I look at things and view things, I think.
Someone said attitude is the difference between an ordeal and an adventure. And that's been our experience. Attitude's everything.
Because I want the kids to remember it as like, that was the best time ever. And normally our best times were probably technically our worst times when everything went wrong. But I always have to just pretend like I'm holding up a mirror. And that's what, tighter places and situations really bring that out, where I need to just like change how I'm viewing this to make it fun for everybody.
Yeah, talking about things going wrong, we always say after the fact, we say when things go wrong, they actually go right, because that makes the adventure. Those are the times we we talk about, not when everything went perfectly smooth.
Like in Baja.
Yeah. So in Baja, we were to go across this highway that the people we were with, they said, last time we drove this 14 months ago, it took us 2 hours to get to where we're going. And so we planned on 2 hours. But when we started into the highway, it had been washed out and all the bridges were out and there was big sinkholes and potholes everywhere. So it took us about 5 hours. But man, that whole story of driving under the bridges at night and just, we thought, we didn't know what had happened. We didn't know about that a hurricane had wiped it out a year earlier, but it was that type of situation that becomes such an epic story to tell later, and one that we reminisce about around a campfire.
And you really bond with who you're traveling with, and
right.
It was actually great. It wasn't an epic road trip. It was
epic no road trip.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us about the number one biggest challenge you've had to overcome on the road.
Probably Peter being diagnosed and learning how to cook and to store insulin in all of his needs. That's for me as a mother, or us as parents, that's probably been our number one.
Yeah, and I would imagine for him that as well, because one minute he's a happy-go-lucky, carefree 14-year-old who, if he's going to go on a day hike up a mountain, he doesn't have too many things to worry about. He just thinks about, do I have enough food? Or he probably left that up to mom, not even worry about anything. But now he has to think about, do I have all my equipment? Can I test my blood sugars? Do I have a source of glucose to get my blood glucose up if I need it? Do I have a source of insulin, and is it properly stored to get it down if I need it? And that's one challenge, climbing a mountain, but also traveling internationally. Do I have enough insulin for 3 months, and can I store it? Because it has to remain cold all the time. And so those are challenges that we've accepted as part of our new norm now, and so has he. And we've gotten pretty good at it now. But man, we have some stories like we put it in the refrigerator, and then we pack up because we're catching an early flight the next morning, and then we forget it in the refrigerator. And then we're halfway across the ocean to some other place. And
like in the movie Home Alone, where she realizes that Kevin is not there and she screams out Kevin on the airplane. That was me with the insulin. I'm like, oh my gosh, the insulin! And we have, going to like a third world country, and it's just.
And the funny thing is, we're catching a bus to the airport early in the morning, and then some lady came running down and kind of waved the bus before we left, and then said in her broken English, very, very broken English, she said, "You left a magazine in the room." And we said, "Oh, okay." We didn't even know we had a magazine, but she said, "Do you want me to get it?" And we said, no, whatever magazine it is, you can keep it or throw it out. And she had this bewildered look on her face, and she's like, almost like she's saying, "Are you sure?" And then off we went in the bus, and that's when we realized, or later we realized, she was not saying magazine, she was saying medicine.
Oh, man.
That's why it clicked on the airplane, like halfway through. I was like, oh my, it was medicine. And that was my Kevin moment.
Yeah. So.
I just got goosebumps all over.
Yeah, it was
We've had quite a few of those in the first few months. Of
We've gotten better. We've built a system where the night before, we don't put it in the fridge. We put ice in a cooler bag and pack it. So things like that have improved our success at traveling anyway.
Let's dive into finances. One of the most common questions asked is, how can you afford to do what you're doing? Or I'm sure you've gotten the question or comment, you must be rich or won the lottery. So obviously the real question is, how can our listeners do what you're doing? So give us your best insights on financing, along with any saving tips, budgeting. Help our listeners with some solid ideas to take action on.
Yeah, that is the number one question I'm sure people want to know. So a couple of things. I mean, we can only talk about our experience. I'm not sure how some others do it, but so we always had this thing. We said we want experiences over things. And so we had a lot of things. I had worked hard in business and been fairly successful. And so, like you mentioned right out of the gate, we sold a lot of our things, including our house. And and for the first couple of years, we traded those things for experiences, if you get my meaning. So experiences cost about the same as things. They're not cheaper in many cases. But if you're serious about exchanging experiences or things for experiences, then you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. So we traveled initially on some savings and some of our own money. And we were happy to do that. It was a dream come true, and I would never regret it. Rather than a new roof on our house, some of the experiences saving the whales in New Zealand, that's a no-brainer for us. That's something we'll cherish forever. Or a new couch in our living room. You know, we met a friend of ours on our travels. She was 80 years old, and she said no one ever, you know, in their eulogy, someone isn't going to say, man, I don't know about her, but she really had a nice couch. And she's like,
True.
Like, at this point in my life, I couldn't care less about the furniture and the things. It's all I have left is the experiences I had when my children were with me. And she really encouraged us to just go ahead and do it. So we spent, some of the monies from savings, but we learned very quickly, or we decided very quickly, once we decided to carry on with this, it went from being a trip to a lifestyle. So for your viewers to say, are we going on a trip, which has a definite time and end? So is it 3 months or 8 months or a year? Well, then you can budget for it, right? That's okay. But do you want to do this for an extended period of time? Are you planning on doing this full time? Then you need to be able to make an income on the road. And so we have friends that do photography courses and photography, and they make money that way. Or you can do some online work. I'm a professional speaker, so I'm able to fly from whatever the nearest airport is to do my talk and then come back and then carry on our journey. You just need to have a way of making money on the road, unless you did win the lottery or are personally rich and you just have an endless supply of money, but that's usually not the case. Along with that, you need to find ways to save money. So, camping, there's a lot of free camping available, which we learned. And once we got to the comfort level where we felt secure out there and we had built up our competency around wild camping, that saves a lot of money. Your big expenses are fuel, food, and lodging if you're not free camping, and then Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi can be, we use more than normal because we're uploading videos and so on, and downloading, things that we need in our videos. So just being
all the kids' schoolwork is online.
The kids' schoolwork is all online, so we need a good Wi-Fi connection for, at least fairly often. So traveling in foreign countries, that's expensive. Usually at home, it's not that bad. You can get an unlimited plan of some sort. So, with food, we talked already about food and how to preserve it and maintain it and pick your favorite meals and save some money that way. Fuel is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it other than if you want to save some money, you just don't drive as much or stay longer in one place. But we've covered a lot of ground, so it is what it is, and it goes up, it goes down. It's more expensive in other countries and so on, but all part of the fun. And then Wi-Fi, we get creative. We use we'll drive into Starbucks and use theirs, or now Wi-Fi you find quite readily available in most places. Overseas, we have an unlocked iPhone, so we can just buy a SIM card there and then get on their best package. Those are the main costs. But becoming competent and comfortable with free camping was our biggest savings. And we had friends that have been on the road for 3 years. The Holcombs, they're still on the road, actually. They just shipped over to Europe and are doing some traveling there. But they took us out on our first ever off camping a couple of years ago. like out of park camping, and it was such a wonderful experience in that. And they taught us something new, so we're very thankful for that. And that became our preferred method of camping, and it's completely free using BLM land. And in the U.S. and other countries have something similar to that.
And any budgeting that you do or would recommend on a daily basis that you try and stick with?
I mean, we just have our basic budget spreadsheet, knowing that food, fuel, camping, which gets less and less as we get more competent, and then Wi-Fi. We have those main expenses there, and we just keep track of them. So I just use an app called Expensify, and I just take a picture of every receipt, and then it kind of lets us know where we're at.
That's
but
great.
It's kind of it's nice being on the road, because I mean, I can go through a really quaint town and they have beautiful shops, and you just look. I mean, where are you going to put the stuff? So Pete loves it. I mean, we go to all these amazing stores and stuff, and it's just like, oh, it's looking.
Let's buy this. Oh, wait a minute, where are we going to put it? Oh,
Exactly.
So now whenever we come to those places, he doesn't cringe, like before. He just goes, oh yeah, sure, we can pull over and take a look at that. But
we'd always leave with something that we may or may not need, but we had the room for it. Now we don't. So it's a check and balance for all of us.
Especially with the kids, they just we can go past big malls and all sorts of things, and they really have no interest looking at it. I mean, other than if it's camera gear that they need, or hiking gadgets, but even that, you're very limited, because it's like, how much do you want to carry?
And most of our hiking gear we bought the first year we set out, and we're using the exact same stuff. We just learned how to maintain it and keep it. If you buy good quality up front, it'll last you for years and years. So we've got really good quality stuff, and we haven't had to replace it. Eating out was expensive on our first year.
So we were more celebrating. I mean, there is those 3 months that was us. We wanted to just spend time together and just celebrate.
I wasn't working at all. It was something we had planned for a long time. We just went on a trip and just enjoyed ourselves. But you probably can't afford to do that indefinitely.
But
I know we can't. But now in terms of food,
the kids don't want to eat out. I mean, they love cooking, and they love that experience around the campfire.
Well, that's thanks to Carol and your cooking, and Daniel's getting good, and the atmosphere and everything. It's the funniest thing when for the first time I heard, "Oh, do we have to eat out?" That was just
that was great.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yes, I have money in my wallet.
Exactly.
That's too expensive. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So thank you for going through those details. That's very helpful. Navigation and communication. What kinds of navigation tools are you using for your off-road travel?
So off-road, we use right now Gaia GPS a lot. It's pretty cool. And people in the community, we're part of the Overland Bound community. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I'm sure you are, Michael and Overland Bound. And so friends from there will say, oh, you're in that area. Let me shoot you some GPS coordinates. Here's a really great place we went to or camped or trail we did. There's another one called Overlander, which is pretty cool. You just get people randomly taking a picture and putting the GPS coordinates of their favorite camp spot, and you just follow it. And often you're very surprised. Talking about Oregon, where you're from, we were way out in eastern Oregon, south of Burns, near the Steens Mountains, and we just went out, drove way off the road, and you're relying on the notes of somebody else. It was a couple from Germany that was doing a world travel, and they, in their broken English, said, the road is bumpy, but was worth it when we got there. And they were not kidding. The road was very
more a lake. I mean, we were snorkeling our way through that one.
Yeah. They didn't say what time of year they're there, but anyway, it was great when we did get there, because there was a hot springs in the middle of nowhere, and just one of our quietest sleeps ever, and nothing but stars, and just sometimes you just find those gems on the app. So
the boys went hiking and found some arrowheads, and it was amazing experience.
All right, so off to Burns we go, Lisa.
Yeah.
Jump in the Jeep this afternoon and go there.
Yeah. There
Any
you go.
tips on communication from cell phone plans? I don't know if you use a UHF or VHF radio at all.
We have installed a CB radio, but we don't use it that much. When we were in Mexico, we used ham radio with the other vehicles, but it mostly cell phone. When we get way off, we have a Garmin communicator device, and it's one of those emergency devices you can hit. There's an emergency, and it'll alert the people that you asked it to, including the search and rescue if you want to. But it also, now, when we started off, that technology wasn't there, bidirectional communication. It was only emergency outbound communication. But now the latest unit we have allows bidirectional texting, which is completely off cell, so it's satellite, and it's not crazily expensive, and it's definitely one of those devices I think you should have. It gives you, especially with a family, especially if you have a medical challenge that you're traveling with, it gives you a level of comfort. I think it's worth the investment. The unit was about $499 and up front just for the hardware, and then about $100 a month for 40 texts. But we don't use that many anymore, so we're going to downgrade our monthly subscription to the lowest. But it gives you that peace of mind that no matter where you are in the world, anywhere in the world where you have access to satellites, which is everywhere, you can communicate with the outside world.
Yep. And for a listener, what Peter is talking about is the Garmin InReach. So that is very, very helpful to have with you. Let's go through some onboard necessities real quick. How much fuel can you carry? How far does that take you? And any tips you have on calculating your fuel needs?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we have our standard fuel tank. We recently were invited by a company that extends your fuel tanks. They want to put one on our vehicle for us, and that might be something we consider. But before going into, let's say, certain African countries, but most places in North America, you don't have to worry about fuel too much. Nevada, we were recently in a place and we had the choice to take the America's loneliest road where there's no fuel, or so sometimes we won't go that direction if we don't have enough. But we do have a 10-gallon AEV fuel tank, which is right behind our spare tire, and that has a siphon, so if we did get really low or run out, we could siphon that into our vehicle and carry on. At least in the trailer, we sometimes, if we're in places like northern Canada, when we were going to the Alaska Highway, we were in places where the fuel was very, very few and far between. So tip number one is, you see a fuel, doesn't matter what your level is, fill everything you have up. We carried several jerry cans with us as well. Just fuel up when you see a fuel station. Don't care about the price, just fuel up, because you don't know when you'll see the next one. We haven't been that technical and not well planned to really calculate, where we're going. We just make sure we have a lot of spare. Our fuel consumption isn't the best because we have, a lot of gear on here, a lot of people in here. We're towing a trailer. So.
Yeah, you're probably getting 11, 12 miles a gallon?
Yeah, on a good day.
Exactly. We have the same vehicle, so except it's not the Arctic edition, so we're very familiar with how that works. And then, how much water do you guys carry, and any tips you have on filtering water when needed?
Life Straw.
Yeah, we use the Life Straw products.
We have the bag.
Yeah, there's several, and there's other ones. We're not sponsored by any of these brands, by the way, that we're sharing. It's just what we use. There's a Life Straw bag which will drip filter your water, so you can really take brown water out of a pond, and it'll come out very, very clean and pure. There's smaller units as well, where if it's good clean water, but you're not sure if there's bacteria, you can just put it in your drinking water and filter. It has a filter in it. But for more bulk water, use the bag system. But again, in North America, good clean water is pretty much readily available, and so storage becomes the what you need to do. And so we have our roof rack is made by a company called Front Runner, and they have some water storage containers that go with the roof rack. So we have one that is the width of the vehicle. I'm not sure how many gallons offhand.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a good source of water. And then they also have the smaller ones, which are 10 gallon, I think, that we can store in the trailer, fresh water. So we don't often run out of water. And then our bumper is actually another water storage. Yeah.
But it depends on what and where we're going, and because we don't want to carry extra weight. So like even with showers, in the beginning I was like obsessed that the kids had to get their showers, but I mean now there's rivers and lakes, or there's those big by Sea to Summit, I think, big cloths that you can wash your body with, and those have been great, like using
dry shower deals.
Yeah. And the dry shampoos that don't need the water. So it's kind of like rethinking everything, and just keeping the water for drinking and for cooking and coffee. Yeah, what was I thinking?
Yes.
Of course, the coffee.
I need a shower. Well, no, there's just enough for coffee, so you can.
That has
Out
happened,
of luck.
by the way.
Awesome. What refrigerator are you guys using, and what size is it?
It's we've outgrown it, but it's an ARB 80 quart, I think it's called. So it's made by ARB. But yeah, like I said, it was perfect for us when the kids were younger and didn't eat, but now they're ravenous wolves, and we probably need 2 of those.
Any tips you've got for our listeners on picking out a refrigerator?
Think 5 years ahead.
Right.
Because I mean, you want to make it a one-time purchase. And if I had the opportunity to rethink it, I would have gone much bigger. And the fridge is so important. Like, I mean, that is really huge.
Yeah. If we had known, we'd still be on the road. But at the time, we were like, this will do for our trip.
Yeah, I didn't think that went through. I would have gone with the biggest one possible.
But that being said, it's incredibly efficient. Some people don't install a second battery, but I think that's a great idea if you can do it. And then just let that battery run the fridge, basically, and any accessory lights separate from your vehicle, so you don't have to worry about draining the main battery. And have it on a slide if you can. There's tons of different companies now making these little slide outs that make it very convenient to get in and out of the back of your fridge, your Jeep. Okay.
And any specific recovery gear you use or would recommend to our listeners to make sure that they've got with them? Yeah, the Max Tracks are good to have if you're going off-road. It's a device that you slide under your wheel if you get stuck, and it gives you grip to get out, just enough to get you moving. And then that's typically for snow or soft beach sand. We installed a winch on the front. Now, believe it or not, we've never had to use it to pull ourselves out. The other, Max Tracks and 3 kids pushing. Bring 3 teenagers who don't mind pushing.
There you go.
That's your best recovery vehicle. But the winch we did use to pull somebody else out that got stuck in a tidal pool, and probably their vehicle would have been washed out when the tide came in. So we were able to use it to pull him out and get him on his way. But a winch is always a good thing to have. It gives you that peace of mind when you're going way off the trail. I think the Deadman. I think that is a huge part of our gear. Like, if you don't want to spend the money on the winch, you need the Deadman needs the winch, right? Never mind. Well, the Deadman, Carol's mentioning the Deadman. It's a simple, very, very simple device. It was created by a guy down in San Diego, and it's what it's specifically for is when you're on a beach and there's no rocks or trees to tie your winch to. It gives you an anchor point. So basically it's like a tarp with straps on it, and you dig a deep hole and you put the tarp down on the bottom of the hole, and then you backfill it with the sand. And now it gives you an anchor point, and you click your winch on there and you pull yourself out. You can use rocks or trees, depending on where you are. But I think always having a shovel is huge. We use a shovel all the time. So yeah, shovel's a handy little thing. It just slides into our back behind our spare tire. trying to think what else. That's the bulk of it. We do have the benefit of 3 teenagers that don't mind pushing, but you know what? We don't get stuck that often because they also like to go and do trail scouting. So they'll be up in front, and often 1 or 2 of them are filming as well because we're creating our YouTube channel. So you got that trail intel ahead of you, and you tend to take the best route that way. So that's been good.
That's good. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, your work-play care. And one of the things that's really important to us is doing good along the way. So is there anything else that you can share on the care element and how you implement this into your adventures?
It's, just like you guys, that's one of our core values, and it's very important to us. And we just keep our eyes open. We get this question often because it's very hard to plan ahead of time for these things, but sometimes you can. So if you're going into a poor area, you could do a little bit of research and find out if there's an orphanage, and you can go to their website, and they'll usually have a list of items that they're very desperate for. And then that's one way you can do a little bit of care while you're traveling.
Schools, they might need help, like our kids could help teach English.
That's something they're looking at if we go abroad again. But things here in America, I mean, there's we've always, in business world, we were part of the Ronald McDonald House Charities. We were a corporate sponsor, but we've kind of carried that on and tried to do that as well. There's one in every city. So if you're passing through a city, they also have a list of much needed things like diapers or toothpaste or toothbrushes or little items you can buy. So we try to do that. Another one is food banks. No matter where you go, there's always a food bank. And for us, it's just a way we're getting groceries, and then we contribute to the town that way and try to leave. Our mission is to leave the people we meet and the places we visit a little better than we found them. So there's that, the people side, and then also just cleaning up. Unfortunately, I don't know who's doing it, but you go to the most beautiful places on earth, and then somebody's just leaving litter behind, or they set up a beautiful camp and then just left it a mess. So we just find all kinds of opportunities to do our part to clean up. At a minimum, before taking off from any kind of camp spot, we make sure we leave nothing behind. We're all about leave no trace, but we also try to each pick up 5 pieces of somebody else's and take that with us. I think if you keep your eyes open and you leave with a value like caring for the people you meet and the places you visit, the opportunities begin to present themselves. That's how the Haiti opportunity came about. That's how the whale opportunity came about. And they're not all as big and dramatic as that. Some of them are very small little things you can do, but they're still impactful, and they help to make a difference as you go.
That's good. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Anything that we've missed?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground there.
Yes, we did.
So let's wrap it up with some fun facts about you. What keeps your co-driver occupied on long drives?
Oh, the conversations we have. Yeah. Some of them are hilarious. And then the kids, when we're coming up to a new state or a new place, we always have them reading like what the history is about the place, like what kind of rocks and how different lakes were developed. So there's always learning going on and fun facts. And then it makes it, when you do get to the place, it's a whole nother eye opener. Like, and if you didn't know it before, you'd be like, oh, that's a nice lake. But
yeah, or the history, or especially with national parks. When we first left, that's something we learned along the way, what Carol's saying. We would just go to a place, enjoy it, experience it, leave. And then later we'd be watching a documentary or reading something and go, oh, I had no idea that there's an interesting historical fact about that place. So that was to us a bit of a waste. Had we known before, we would have been much more advised. And so we began learning and researching something before we got there, and quirky little, things about that place that we don't want to miss. So that keeps you pretty occupied. Sometimes it's just listening to music, listening to an audiobook. we are, when we're in the Jeep, we try not to do huge long drives, like maybe maximum 3 hours a day, which for us isn't even considered a drive anymore. Back in the first couple of years, it was like we wouldn't ask how many hours away is it. We'd say how many days is it away from here.
Do any of you play any musical instruments on the road or around the campfire at night?
Yeah, we have 4 guitars. More guitars than we should have because we don't have the space for any of them. But the kids wouldn't. Yeah, they love playing guitar, and it's great around the campfire at night. It's we sing campfire songs and play guitar, and
there's a harmonica kicking around. I mean, the kids are always, picking up something and trying to figure it out.
We have been looking at for quite a while these little travel guitars because when our last little venture, we were so packed we couldn't take the guitar with us, and everyone had guitar withdrawals by the time we got back. So yeah, there's
Hopefully
a
they're
travel.
getting that out of their system now.
That's right. There is a travel size one that we're looking at getting. It's very, very small but it functions and sounds like a full size. So that I think that'd be great.
And we have like board games, like little tiny ones. They really like chess.
Yeah.
And card games, and yeah,
it's fun for us to see the kids playing a really intense chess game, or on a tiny little chessboard on a tire table off the side of the Jeep under the shelter of the rooftop tent. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, they're very competitive.
Sure.
Good.
By solar light at night.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What's your favorite drink in the morning to get you going?
Coffee.
Coffee, definitely coffee. We've become connoisseurs. The kids have grown into the age where they like coffee now in their late teens, and got to the point where it's got to be fresh ground beans, drip filtered. They know the type of filter and how slow or fast to pour, and what grind thickness or coarseness they like.
The sound of a grinder. The sound of a grinder in the morning will get anybody up, Yeah. So.
I'm liking this scene even better. I just need to grab a chair. I will even travel on the top of your roof rack.
You're not going anywhere. I'm not giving you up. What's a favorite beverage at night to wind down after a long day on the road?
Probably a glass of red.
Yeah, if we have the luxury of a glass of red wine, it's nice to have sometimes around the campfire.
If we're on the West Coast, I do like a good IPA, partly because I'm from Oregon.
Yeah, good.
But probably as us adults, that's what we like. And the kids, they really like tea. Daniel's a real tea drinker, and he has his own little tea ball, and he goes and buys little mixes and then blends his own, and he really likes that.
The way the others are with coffee. As coffee connoisseurs, he's pretty much that way with tea, and that makes a good evening drink for all of us too on most nights.
That's good. Very impressive, Daniel.
Yeah.
What is your best advice to aspiring overlanders like us?
Oh, best advice. Just, don't stress about anything. It's meant to be fun. And just have fun, because life is too short to get too worried about anything. And if you're crazy enough to do it, your friends and family, everyone's going to think you're nuts. So go along with that and just be a little crazy and have fun. Don't try to convince them otherwise, because you know what, you have to be a little bit crazy to live an alternative lifestyle. Most people get stuck in societal norms and are just unable to break from that in any way, shape, or form. But if you're able to, then have fun with it. And remember, there's always a new chapter in life. It's probably not something you're going to do for the next 50, 60 years. So whatever time you are fortunate enough to be able to do it, just enjoy every minute of it.
That's great. So how can people learn more about you and what you guys are up to? Talk to us about your YouTube channel and how they can keep up with you on social media. Yeah,
so mostly YouTube and Instagram. there is also a Facebook presence, which we're working on. But Instagram, we're Epic Family Road Trip. And if you search Epic Family Road Trip on YouTube, you'll find the YouTube channel, which is an effort mostly done by the children. I mean, we'll contribute if they need someone to talk and so on, but the editing, most of the filming and all that's done by the kids, and they've become really professional at it. That's one skill they've learned on the road, which we're really happy with. They get offers on a regular basis to come work for my production company or whatever, but they're having too much fun on the road. But that's been an incredible skill. So yeah, if someone wants to get a hold of us, that's probably the best way. Epic Family Road Trip on any social media you try.
That's great. And any more information you'd like to give or useful resources that our listeners should check out?
I think we've covered pretty much everything. It's an amazing community, and once you get involved in it, you'll find the people are incredible. Overland Expo and some of the other events, like you're going up to the West Coast Rally, those type of events are very, very helpful. That's where we learned about some of the intricacies about shipping overseas and things like that. We learned about cleaning our vehicles so that we could ship into New Zealand, countries like that. You're going to learn a ton in just 1 or 2 or 3 days. So
it's a confidence booster, and you meet a lot of like-minded people, or you just learn so much from other people who have been there and done that. And we love the community so much, and we're so thankful for other members that have actually turned into almost like family members to us now. So.
Yeah, it's a great community. Your podcast, the expos and rallies that are out there, Overland Bound's a great community of like-minded people. So you'll find that it's a wonderful community, and everybody's willing to help each other. You won't be out on your own, even though you're very remote and often on your own. You're physically, spiritually, emotionally, you've got a great group behind you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We are humbled that you've given us such an amazing look into your world, experiences, and knowledge. Safe travels and adventures to you, and we hope to catch up with you again in the future.
We'll see you down the road.
Yeah, we'll see you down the road. Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
All right, you
cheers.
too.
So there you go. Ladies first, Lisa. What were your primary takeaways from Peter and Carol?
I was impressed with Daniel's cooking skills with a solar oven back on part 1.
Ooh, that was good, yeah.
I may have to ask him to cook me something. And I think watching their YouTube channel, knowing Caroline, Peter, and Daniel are totally doing all the work, that's impressive.
That is true. Now, do this. Go to Google and search Epic Family. Result number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all the Epic Family Road Trip. And they're a family of 5. So that was pretty interesting. Peter, Carol, Caroline, Peter, and Daniel are the Epic Family. It's official.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yep. Go look it up. Google it.
That's cool.
So, that was, epic. How else do you say it? That was a lot of really good information. So, Peter and Carol, thank you so much for taking your time to connect with us and sharing with all of us a ton of information, knowledge, experience. It was... Epic. Help me out with some words, Lisa. I'm trying to come up with something besides epic.
It's fabulous.
It was amazing. So thank you so much. Truly.
It's a good idea to visit the show notes page on our website at ghteoverland.com/podcasts. Select the Epic Family Road Trip episode. All the details and helpful links are already there for you. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your support.
Oh, hey, that reminds me. We made a little switcheroo. On our website, we have officially run out of web pages.
We've done that many interviews. That's awesome.
Well, yeah. So anyway, they won't give us any more pages.
What?
Yeah, so, technicalities. But we have found a workaround currently. We would love your feedback to let us know how you like it. So you'll still go to, as Lisa said, ghtoverland.com/podcast, and all of them will be listed on that page. And then you'll select whatever episode you want to listen to. The current 2 episodes with the Epic Family Road Trip will then take you to Patreon, and you can listen to each of the episodes live right there. I'm hoping the second one works out okay because we've not done this before. All the show notes are there. Everything is there. And I think that's how we're going to get around the limitation with web pages without having to go to a different web host and start completely over, which would be, mind-blowing to have to do that all over again. So just one of those technical things, hurdles that we have to overcome. And I think it's important that we've got all the show notes and we don't just have a list of shows.
Yeah.
So I like that extra step because there's such great information that each guest shares with us. And there's not a limit on Patreon on how many pages you can have. So that's what we're doing. We'd love to hear your feedback on what you think, or if you have another great idea without starting over. So send your questions, suggestions, speaking of suggestions, and feedback to ghtoverlandpodcast@gmail.com. If you have an Amazon Echo, remember to tell Alexa, play the GHT Overland podcast. We'd love it if you would connect with us on all the social medias. Primarily, you're going to find us on Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, a teeny bit of Twitter. Do you like that?
Yeah.
Be sure to share the episode with your friends who enjoy travel off the beaten path. Overland travel is all about meeting new friends, seeing the most amazing places on earth, and of course, new food and new drinks.
If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the world to us if you do a couple things and help us out. Like seriously, it's a big deal and a huge help. Rate and review the podcast and subscribe, giving the GHT Overland podcast a little extra love on your podcast platform of choice. Thank you, and we will see you next Thursday for a brand new episode of the GHT Overland podcast.